Welcome, everyone, to this week's Elemental Evolution. I hope that you all have had a fantastic week as usual. This was, for me, a very interesting week, and I think a lot of people at least experienced what they would consider to be abnormal, either behavior within themselves or those people around them. With the super blue moon that hit us, the second supermoon, the second full moon in January, right off the bat for 2018, it seems like we've got an extra charge. Things were not really falling into place, at least from a perspective of spiritually and in lining in people's goals and purposes. And it just seemed like things were still really scattered when we started this year. So the second full moon seems like to me it just really pushed us into a place of being able to, I guess, plan, start getting our agendas put together, start getting our long-term goals put into place so that we can actually accomplish some of the things that maybe we started thinking about in 2017 but got spun out in the reality of survival on this planet. So I thought it would be fun. Originally, I had scheduled another host from American Freedom Radio that has kind of been out of touch for a while. And apparently, even today, he has continued to be out of touch because we could not connect. So in my scramble, I was fortunate enough to connect with somebody that I think everyone on this channel is going to enjoy. Some of you may know, some of you may not. Barbara Craig. Am I saying all that right? Hi, Barbara.
Hi. Yes, that's right.
Great. So I went through your website. I don't want to go into too much because we're kind of newly connected, and I'm excited about the things that I saw, and I'm excited about the things that you're doing. So I want to just kind of right away go into a little bit about you. So if you could tell the audience what it is that you're up to these days.
Okay. I'm in a little bit of a space right now between things, as they say. I was living in Europe for many years, as you probably saw from my website. Last year I was in Italy and Switzerland, and I'm originally Canadian, as you can tell by my voice.
Yeah, okay, great.
And I got into I started to wake up around 2012. I was listening to a little bit about your interview about people being awake.
Yes.
I started to wake up.
That's a time for, to be honest with you, I mean, that was a huge awakening for a majority of people.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah, really. But go ahead, sorry.
No problem. So, I'm an artist and a teacher and interested in all kinds of things. I save all the videos that I find interesting. I've got lots of different playlists on my YouTube channel because I started off with chemtrails, and I used to do some, be more active, doing interviews and things like that in marches, and then
that's a topic for us, Barbara.
And then that went into a whole bunch of other stuff. I found out about all the other stuff like the cabal and the ETs and all the other stuff that, you would never have believed was true in a million years, or most people probably don't believe it's true in a million years. So
you're probably crazy for thinking that it is true, right? I mean, that's the MO, right?
Well, I usually don't say much. Let's put it I had to learn to keep my mouth shut.
Oh, that's an issue for me. So you can imagine, I'm the local nut job. It's fine.
It's very difficult. Very difficult. Yes.
Well,
yes.
It is because, and I think it's great that you have such a variety to talk about too, because I kind of jump around. You're going to find out.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, because, first of all, because what ends up happening, just like you said, one thing leads to another.
Yeah, that's right.
So many things are connected. And I'm taking this class right now on climate control. And global climate control. And it is it's rocking my boots off. And not because I have a different idea of some of the things that they're speaking of. Okay, fine. But it's actually learning how some of the misconceptions, the normal media perception, the things that you're being told through media, through Where else? I mean, even I think through in elementary schools, advertising that are completely false and untrue as far as our atmosphere is going, as far as the ozone layers and where they're actually at and what's affecting them, the greenhouse, blah, 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 blah. Oh,
Yes.
shocked.
So are you at university or?
Yeah, I actually, yes, yeah, I don't want to get into too much about that because I have a tendency to get on a little bit of a tangent.
Okay, so what do they say in this climate control class? That we can do it, that it's a good idea?
Well, so in this class, what they're doing is they're showing both sides of all these different ideas about climate control. Because I'm going into a different branch of law is what I'm doing. So, I've been in criminal law for a while now, or, a lot of years. And so now I'm going in a different direction. So in this class, basically, it's the greenhouse effects, it's the gases, it's talking about chemtrails, but how they're putting a spin on things. And this is, I want to know because it seems like with your background, when you're going to investigate something, you're not going to probably just be like, oh, this is what they said, okay.
Yeah.
So when they're I guess the argument that I was hearing that I had never really understood before until now is that we have a situation going on this planet where the greenhouse gases and different things that are happening are rising the levels of the temperature naturally, unnaturally, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into all that too much, but the chemtrails, what they're saying is that they are actually producing a shield from the sun and other effects of the ozone.
And they're teaching that at university, that they're actually doing it, and it's a good idea?
Yes. Oh.
I can't believe, yeah. But
you can't believe half the stuff. I mean, people would crap their, like in our circles,
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm pretty blunt, but people would crap their pants if they saw and read the things that I'm reading in these books about and how indoctrinating the system starts out. I mean, just blasting you with things about, bin Laden and how our country needs more security. And I mean, just on and on. It's just horrific.
Yes, agreed.
But what I think is fascinating, so this is what's fascinating, is so then you get on and you get onto these websites. So what I did is I also started digging into chemtrails because I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, really? Like, okay, they're good, bad, whatever. What is going on? Like, why is nobody doing anything about it? Or why is it not, even on the board or being discussed? Why is it still considered a conspiracy theory?
Yes.
And so I started looking into it, and cloud seeding came up.
Mm-hmm.
They dug a little further. All of a sudden, go ahead, I'm sorry.
They're saying that it's a proposed agenda in the media, but they've actually been doing it apparently for more than 20 years. So it's nothing new. And my view is that global warming is not a reality. I think that they made that up as an excuse to have an excuse to create this sort of, what you might want to call a shade umbrella, which actually doesn't work because it's actually going to warm it. The effect of what they're doing, the chemtrails, is going to have the opposite effect. It's going to warm it up. And it's not true that we are warming the planet, because if you look at where the ice is melting, it's because I believe the core of the Earth is warming.
You're right. And they're showing a lot of this. It's interesting, like I said, they're showing both sides, but it's
good.
It's fine. But what I found interesting is that, and I think at least I didn't know this. So maybe this is something, and this is why I want to talk about it a little bit more. And when you're cutting down trees at such a massive scale as we are everywhere all over the planet,
yes,
everybody's like, okay, well, now we're not producing oxygen.
Right.
What I found out is it's actually releasing a huge amount of CO2. Like like 1 tree, 2 trees, 100 trees, fine. Thousands of trees is producing more. And
we need trees because trees create oxygen, and we're creating carbon dioxide. So, and they breathe in what we breathe out, and what we create apparently with our quote carbon footprint. So cutting down the trees, and the trees are also dying due to chemtrails and geoengineering because everything is contaminated. The rain is contaminated. The soil is contaminated. We are contaminated. So the trees are dying or sick. And like most of us are actually at the moment, even though most of us aren't aware of it because maybe we think it's normal.
Well, everybody does think it's normal. And that's one of the, I mean, I go crazy over different things because I am a medical empath is what they call it.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I don't really like that title because anyway, I don't have any medical background and I don't know that much about it, but I know that I get a taste in my mouth and I have different things that happen to me when I'm dealing with people. And so people are almost always dehydrated.
Yeah.
And the aluminum content, the mineral content, like it used to be when I was a young girl, like very young, I would get a very strong mineral taste in my mouth. Now I get a very strong aluminum taste.
Interesting. So you get a taste in your mouth related to people that you're in contact with?
Or if I think of them.
Uh-huh.
Or anything. Yeah. And I also, there's a whole string of things because I was born with it. I didn't have some kind of, what do you call that? Near death or trauma yeah, I just was born with vision, and then it also goes into the taste in my mouth. I can astral project. There's all these things that nowadays is very openly talked about, but when in the 70s that was not really that cool.
Right.
I was a nut job. So which I'm not getting, I still kind of, it's fine. So the chemtrail thing, here's what I find fascinating about that as well, is it's like, why is nobody, it's like they make it a law that you're not supposed to, in certain parts and areas that you cannot hold or contain rainwater.
Yes, that's Agenda 21.
Yeah, so everybody's like, oh, that sucks, and then boom, nobody says a thing about it, and that's happening. Same with the GMOs, same with, there's a whole list of things, and one of the biggest, I guess, where I was going with this class and what hit me the hardest was two things. One, that the trees being cut down was not only depleting us of oxygen, but also adding to the CO2 levels, because when you're cutting down trees, it releases a certain amount of CO2, which I didn't know. Secondly, is that when we, on an average, when we started and began using fossil fuels, for example, it was on a very small scale in comparison to today. It is on such a massive, massive scale that when you start to break it down and you start to really look at it, first of all, there's no way in hell we should be using them in any way. They are killing us in every direction. Yet, when you start to try and figure out alternatives, because people are not going to give up their lifestyles. And I mean, let's be real. It's so like, well, it's like, well, yeah, exactly. Unless they're forced, which, that may come. I mean, who knows? Sometimes Mother Earth decides things that we think are a calamity, but in truth is probably preserving her. So, it just seems odd to me because I was actually talking to my dad about this. So, and, he's pretty into the fossil fuels and all this stuff. And I really thought I had this whole thing worked out with the hemp fuels. And I was like, I really broke it down because the solar produces too much of a material that cannot be recycled. There's things about corn, there's things about wind, there's all these different issues with every single thing that they talked about, minus Tesla. But with the marijuana, right? If the conversion and all these other things, like I just, in my mind, it wouldn't even cost nearly as much as biofuel. So I'm
You're talking about an alternative fuel source?
Exactly. Right. So I'm thinking, okay, that's it. And my dad says to me, so I'm like breaking it down to him. I'm telling him all about it. And he says, and where are you going to grow this amount of marijuana to produce enough fuel for all the cars in the world, for all the planes, for all the rockets, for all the, gas heaters, gas this, gas, it's like, and I started thinking, it's not even possible.
Well, we don't need to create fuel because apparently there is another source of energy that has been hidden from us, basically, and it doesn't create pollution like solar panels. Solar panels are a good idea, but as you were saying, they create a lot of pollution. I'm not sure about the practicalities of burning hemp, but hemp could be used for a lot of things, for building houses, for paper, and you wouldn't have to, it doesn't take as long to grow as a tree.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's a grand alternative,
Yes.
but the problem is, and again, the problem is we've created such a huge demand. But I think you're right. There is an alternative, and I love that you bring that up. And we have with us the producer of this show, Stephen Roberts, also does the show Cancel the Cabal. Stephen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Didn't you talk to somebody about alternative fuels not that long ago? Am I making that up?
No, I don't know. What do you mean by not long ago? In the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, that seems like a couple months to me. But I thought I had remembered in one of your shows you had somebody on who was talking about being able, because having an electric car and all these ideas that are coming through are just not really efficient.
It might have been.
Handle.
It might have been Wall Thornhill.
Oh, maybe.
Wallace
So
Thornhill,
what was the alternative? I mean, what were some of the things, if you know of any? If you don't, it's obviously no big deal. But that they're saying maybe are an alternative. And then, Barbara, I want to come back to what you're talking about.
Well, I think what the problem is, Sherri, is the electric cars. They are deliberately not producing the batteries and the cars the way they could be. I believe it was like 1937. I think I don't know who it was. It could have been like 6 months back or something like that. But I believe back in 1937, they had electric cars that could travel over 250 miles on a single charge. That was 80 years ago.
Yeah, I believe you.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, you think about that, because the whole thing is that now we're talking, I'm talking, I don't know if everybody else is, but I'm talking about, why are we even bothering? Like, why are we not doing the hovercrafts? Why are we not using technology that we already know the government is using on different levels or whatever? Why can't we mass produce this into the vehicles that we're using to eliminate all of the stuff that's contributing to the death of our planet? I mean, it just doesn't even make sense to me.
Can I interject something else in there?
Yes, please do. And then we want to jump back to Barbara.
I would like to find it again, but it's been a year or so back that I've seen a video, I don't know, like 10 minutes long. There's a couple of young men out in Southern California or somewhere in California that have made a fuel out of algae. They grow their own algae. They have a big tank of water and they put some organic material in there, and after like a few days it grows into algae and they process it in a way that it makes fuel.
Well, considering the massive amount of ocean that we have, that could be some type of alternative that could definitely be looked at. But I'm just kind of curious as to why or what is even necessary or why we even need any types of fuels, because I think that there are alternatives. Now, Barbara, please go ahead and talk about what you were going to say, what you were talking about with the alternative ideas.
Okay, so I'm not a scientist by any means, but my understanding or my concept is that all the free energy and non-polluting sources of energy, which would be free, have been erased from our consciousness and hidden. And we don't really need, for example, oil. And somehow they want us to be stuck into the oil paradigm.
Because that's what keeps the capital. I mean, that's what keeps the banking system going. And the money, the elite. That's the whole foundation. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. So that's the reason. So the more people are awake, and the more people ask questions, and why are we using these cars which create pollution? And why don't we have incentives for electric cars? Well, in Canada, we now have electric cars or hybrid cars where you can charge your car. You can charge your battery at shopping centers and things like that. But in Canada, a lot of the electricity is coming from nuclear plants. And so nuclear plants, of course, they have another devastating effect on us. So they're not a good solution either. So you have to look at, where is that electricity coming from? Where are they creating that electricity, basically?
Well, and see, that's
electricity is a good idea, but how are they getting it?
Exactly. And that's where I start. And here's the whole bottom line. And tell me if you think this is a far stretch.
Okay.
I don't think we need any kind of fuel. I think that they have, like, these hovercraft, these things that the Germans were working on such a long time ago.
Yeah.
They were hovering and they were not using fuel. I mean, there was all these things that they were using that were able to produce more energy than any of the fuels that we are aware of or conscious of on the public level.
Well, I'm not really sure what the Germans were up to, because I think Tesla, he lived in the United States. The Germans were in contact with ET somehow. They got some ET technology.
Antarctica.
Yeah, I believe that's what they were up to. So who knows what's really going on? I mean, we don't really even have half the picture, I don't think. I don't really think we know, what really happened, or what's, so much of even our own history as humans, human history.
I mean, I've done so many different shows on these topics and gone in different directions. And it's interesting because, I've had some people come in and say that the whole idea of the war, the Nazis, all of that was a complete facade for the banking industry to use the scientists to actually take over and develop this whatever's going on in Antarctica. I don't want to pretend like I know. With these ETs that is now continued today. That's why, if you look online, you type in jobs in Antarctica, pages and pages and pages come up.
Huh, interesting.
Right. But it's only military and scientists, doctors, oil, it's like you have to be something that's contributing. Otherwise, you're not even allowed to fly over it. Now, I think that's fascinating. Why?
Yes.
They're like, oh, well, it's a safety bullshit. Anyway, there's so many different theories. And like I said, I haven't been there, so I don't know. But we don't know as a population, as a people, there could be another whole continent that we have no idea is in existence.
Yeah. Some people think that it's a portal of some kind, because that they're coming in through something in there, or I don't know exactly how they do it, but I think that's what it is.
I think it's a dimensional portal.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and I do believe that. And I think that what the technology, that's what I'm talking about, to be honest with you, is that the technology that actually they're able to use and able to dimensionally shift, whether it was given to them, whether they have it, I'm not really sure, but that's the same technology that creates these hovers, these vehicles, these different things that there is no fuel necessary. There is no recharging. They basically, I want to say crystals, but I don't think that's true. I think I'm making that up because I like crystals. But something like that. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like something that we have not even, like you said, it's been taken out of our consciousness because so many generations it hasn't been passed on. It's been shut down. I mean, are you familiar? I've talked a lot about the third generation. So basically they take a first generation and they make it illegal, or they suppress it, or they make it a bad thing, and they really hammer it down. And then by the second generation, they don't reteach it, and they're teaching it, and they're just like moving it, not really allowing it to prosper at all. By the third generation, there's nothing left of it. And I think that's a lot.
We don't remember anything because it's not even, they take things out of books. Now the information is digital, so it's a lot easier to manipulate information.
Yes. Now, what do you think about, Stephen, what is it called when they're jumping back in time and changing things like the Bernstein Bears?
The Mandela
Thank
effect,
you. Yes. I didn't want to have to look that up because I couldn't remember the name. So that is fascinating to me because of the fact that I actually, there's a lot of those things that I remember specifically, and they're changed completely. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what is it that you remember that isn't there anymore? Something like that?
Yeah, it's like, yes, there was one of the books, the Bernstein Bear books. And then, and the funny thing about it is, because I always had an issue with the, I before E unless after C. I mean, it was like this whole, series of things. And so when things changed in the book, and then I went back and tried to find, where it had changed and different things, it just didn't exist. Then there was something else, and I'm trying to remember what it was, where there was a song, and it was, as a kid, like, that's what you remember, is the jingles or whatever. Well, now that's different. I can't remember what it is. God, I hadn't really planned on going there, but I love that topic.
Interesting. That was on the X-Files this week.
Well, I have a friend. I wish Amanda was available. I'd pull her in because she loves that show. She swears that show is solid disclosure on a regular basis.
I believe that's what they're doing through with that show too. Yeah.
Well, and they have, that's one of, if people understand about, to me, this is a game. We're in a game, and a game is used in a very metaphorical term, but this is a long game is what I call it. Mm-hmm. And there are plots and there are things that are happening that have been thought out and planned out for a very long period of time, way beyond our thoughts of consciousness.
Yeah.
And especially because we have experienced such a limited amount of information, knowledge, anything outside, people still, even in, 2018, there are still groups of people who, when they find out that I am a third generational witch, they think that, I am, first of all, going to hell no matter what. And secondly, that, that I must eat babies and worship the devil.
Really?
And this is 2018. It's like our consciousness is so limited and in so many areas that even in our circles where we are waking up, if you step outside of it, you still get a taste of, I don't know what you call it, the lower vibrational survival, I guess, that this planet has been stuck in for what I consider, a very long time. And that takes me into the idea of this being a rape culture and how, and I'm not just talking about female rape, I'm talking about raping our planet. Everything is just come in, take what you want for profit. Yes. And how much money you have is how much justice you get, how much, pleasure you have, how great your life, everything is based in on this money system. Mm-hmm. I mean, so where do you go with that? Because everything that is, like all the things that I saw on your website, all the things that we've talked about, to me, it all stems right to that main, whether it's a family, whether it's an organization, whether it's a whole bunch of them. Those are the 1% are the ones who are running everything for the rest.
Yeah, that's the idea. So basically the idea, I've been studying this too for a while, because when I first started to wake up, you wake up to the good things and the bad things. And the bad things are pretty hard to cope with when you don't really know or you haven't any idea. So to think that, it's even a bit about how the wealth is distributed, and if we had free energy, then there wouldn't be, possibly people wouldn't be starving because they would have energy to produce food or to transport the food or to transport the water. So the people that are living in poverty and, don't have anything, they would be elevated. And then those of us who have an education, know what's happening, who can read the internet daily, we're looking into it now because, it sounds like you and me, we're kind of, we've gotten over the initial shock. Oh my God, this is horrendous.
Sometimes I'll be honest with you, and I don't know if this happens to you, but so there's times where I still fall in a hole.
Yes.
I'll be reading something and I'll just be like, this is like, I want to go back to like that old saying, ignorance is bliss.
That's right. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I want to unknow this, it's really so possible. Much. It's impossible. You're right. So where do you go and what do you, waking up in 2012 and kind of seeing where things are at for real, what is it now? Because your art and the way that you're researching and opening up your mind, what is that doing for you in your life? How is that affecting the way that you live now as a way that you lived in, say, 2000?
You mean 2018? How is it affecting?
No, like back then. Like, so in 2000, you were living a certain way. You had whatever happened in 2012. Now it's 2018.
Right.
How has your life changed? What has happened? What are some of the dynamic, huge things that you're doing to not lose your mind? Let's go there.
Interesting. How am I not losing my mind? That's a very good question. Particularly difficult when there's not a lot of sunshine, because lack of sunshine affects you on a physical and emotional level.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe I think you're based in Colorado, so maybe you have a little bit more sunshine than Eastern Ontario.
Oh, I think we have over 300 days of sunshine a year.
So, yeah, that sounds good to me. So how my life changes, Well, I went through a phase where I was really active and I was changing, trying to share information. And now I'm sort of changing internally. And also, I've been listening to somebody called Alex Collier, who is an Andromedan contactee. And he said that it's time for us to stop sharing information, because true awakening comes in from our inside, from internally, rather than from information.
Sure.
So how do you wake people up, and how, or do people want to wake up, and so this is what I'm looking at now is sort of changing, my own strategy. I'm sort of disheartened, you could say, because I've been sharing information for years, and I don't really think I don't know whether it's really made any difference. So I think that basically I have to look at what I'm doing. What am I doing? Am I wasting my time, basically? Or should I do it in a different way? Because, I haven't had any issues, but I know people who have, lost their jobs, or they have had their life threatened.
I lost everything. I'm going to be honest with you. And Stephen knows this. People on the show know it. In 2017, I lost my job. I lost my house. I lost everything. I can't even explain what I've been through in a year. And I don't want to say, I was under attack. I mean, I went through this whole thing of being under attack.
That's right.
And I did feel, but now I've come to a place of where, as you were saying, it is from within. And the only way that you can be attacked is when they hit the fear, when they hit a place within you that has doubt and that is already growing. They just grow it bigger for you.
Well, they can attack you physically too. There's a man, I forget his name right now, I think is Dr. Greer, who was in charge of the Disclosure Project.
Yes.
And all the people in his team got cancer. I mean, how does that happen?
This is the whole thing. Now, how much do you know about frequency?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so I did a whole series, and this was a rabbit hole that took me a couple of months to really come out of. But there was a woman, her name is Karen. Well, there's two women, and it's interesting. They're both named Karen, and I hadn't put that together before now. Anyway, that's weird. One of them had introduced to me a biotech. And basically, it's called Biotech.
Karen McDonald?
That was Karen McDonald, correct. And basically what Biotech does is it gets a scan off of your DNA, off of your body, off of your location, and it can scan your body, and through the scan, it can read your blood, it can do anything it can tell you if you're sick, it can tell you what you've eaten, it can tell you what your temperature is, it can tell you how fast your freaking hair is growing.
Wow.
Okay, it's very detailed. I'm sorry, what?
That's interesting.
Yes, well, people can buy this equipment. It's very expensive, but it is out there. So then what ends up happening is, there's a whole lot around this, because that type of technology, when you start having a personal agenda, which a lot of, that's part of the human democracy and the fear of the people, blah, 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 is people that have this technology that even start out with good intentions, a lot of times are still taking over people's free will and other things. And so it's gotten into the hands and it's expanded. If that's what they're giving to people in general, you can imagine what the government has the ability of doing.
I told you what happened to me last time I talked to her, didn't I, Sherri?
No, can you tell us?
And Sean also. Sean
yes,
McGuire.
I do remember, but please tell Barbara, because it was weird.
Well, Sean had her on his show. I was hosting both of them. And she did, both of us had their readings, whatever it was, the algorithm, I don't know what it was. She got all this information from us, where we lived, what our age was, what time of the day we were born, what day we were born, what city and state. Of course, Sean's over there in Ireland, but coincidentally, after she did the reading on him, is when he got lost it there for a long, long time. And it was almost 4 years ago now when I hosted all this, and she did that to me. And subsequently, I started drinking a lot. I started getting dehydrated. I couldn't get enough water, and that's when I got diagnosed with diabetes.
And
after
since
you
then, you've
scan.
also had a heart issue.
Yes.
There's all kinds of things
Yes.
that have gone on. And it's interesting because it's also, so this woman
The
has a
very
personal
next
agenda.
day, the very next day she did that is when it all,
Yes.
it's when it all hit
Well,
me.
and it happened to Rhonda as well. It's happened to a lot of different people. And I didn't know at the time that this was happening. I mean, I didn't even, I had a very short exposure with her, but she continued, and she's still involved in a lot of alternative media and different things. But she works with a woman by the name of Patty Bustard. And the technology and the things that she's using, she gets from her. And her is actually a him, and he works for NASA. So there's a lot involved. And so basically what they're saying is that they have this technology. The reason I went into this is because so once you have a person's bio, you know their DNA, you have their reading, you can track them anywhere on the planet, first of all.
Exactly.
Right? But secondly, then you can induce frequencies that cause illness to the body. So frequency, it can be used to heal you or kill you.
Yes.
And they know, I mean, we're just learning this. Like, I use to astral project and to travel the way that I do to see a person's body, because I actually see like an X-ray. I don't see a human. I see like their energetic form on the inside.
Like a field?
And it's on the inside. It's not like a field on the outside. It's like looking at, so basically I get this big white figure, and wherever somebody's sick or wherever stuff is going on, it's dark. And if I touch into it, I get a taste in my mouth, and it tells me what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's usually a story. It's usually an emotional story, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in that process, I use a hum in my throat. Okay, ever since I was a little girl, nobody taught that to me. That's just how I do those types of things. Well, when I interact with dimensional beings, I use a different hum.
You sound.
Right. They are doing the same thing, but they are using that to travel. That's how they're putting, it's like, so when these people that are living alone and they have their food in the refrigerator and they know that they didn't open it, and then they wake up the next morning and it's half gone, and they're thinking there's no way that anybody could get in, and on and on and on. They're not. They are moving. They're putting themselves into these places, being able to do different things, and then leave without ever being, having to be seen. This is the type of technology that we're talking about, I believe. And there's so much that happens when, like you said, with these scientists. So it goes even further when you talk about the natural. When all of this stuff was first coming out, and they came in and they killed a number of naturopaths right off the bat that were coming in and saying that the prescription drugs were what was killing people. Chemotherapy is killing people.
Yeah.
So they're attacking. Well, when I was doing all of these shows, and I had Tim Rothschild on, and I had Stephen Lawrence, I had all these people coming on. And then this last year, it was like, I got dropped to the ground.
Something happened to you?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm a very small person anyways, and I lost 15 pounds. I was mentally, I was insane. It was awful. Like I said, I lost my house. I lost my job. I have kids. There was so much that happened within 1 year. They shut my bank accounts. I was ripped off. I had, my PayPal was messed. I mean, everything that could hit financially and emotionally happened.
Wow.
And it's a breaker, right? It's like, because that's the whole point, is to get you broken down enough to where you are vibrating in survival.
Right.
Because then you're part of the feeding, you're part of the slave race.
Yes.
But once we come to a place like, okay, like now, for me anyway, no matter what comes, I am in a different vibration. It doesn't matter. Because and maybe this is the purpose. So maybe instead of it being a negative, maybe it really is a positive. I don't know. But they've taken it all. I experienced it now. I lived through it. Mm-hmm. So now it's not like bring it on, because I'm not a glutton. It's more like, okay, I see the capabilities. I see how this planet rolls. Now, what I'm trying to do and why I'm going back into school and why I want to know more about the rules.
About the rules? What do you mean? What rules?
The rules that they have to play by. The rules that we are being, in my opinion, manipulated. Not the rules that they talk about, in your civics class, but the rules that, are you familiar with the law of one, or, the series, the tree of life, the seed of life, the flower of life, all of that type of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, a lot of what is going on, and a lot of what we're seeing with time travel, and all the stuff that people want to say is conspiracy, they break it down. in the Law of One. They really put it into I don't know that it's the only breakdown. I'm just saying that it's a way of looking where we can see that there are more than what we know. I know. Have you ever seen the movie What in the Bleep?
Yeah, that was a while back, right?
Yes, it was actually. I mean, I want to say that I saw that movie in the 90s.
Okay.
But I could be lying about that. And then they did a second one. But that was the first real exposure, in my opinion, to what I was seeing dimensionally. They were explaining dimensional realities.
Yes.
So with this supermoon that just happened, okay, and remember you were saying that you think that maybe there's a portal or there's something going on in Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
So if the theories are, anywhere near anything, and the moon is actually a man or a, I don't want to say man created, or, it's not actually whatever, it's somehow made.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten what's astrologically and what is called, because basically all a supermoon is means that we have a full moon when it's closest to the earth.
Yeah.
Right? And so what that means is that we're getting the highest vibration of the moon, which maybe that's what's opening those portals. I don't know that. I just know that I felt freaking weird as stuff over the last few days. And, even during my meditation and different things that I had going on, and my kid, everything and every person that I talked to was kind of going through a little flip out. What did you experience?
With the full moon? Well, it was very interesting because normally when there's a full moon, I get really hyper. But I didn't have that experience this time, and I didn't really have much of an experience. And I was really disappointed because we couldn't really see much here. It was completely covered over. And then sometime around midnight, I went out and I could see the moon was visible again. And it was very shiny, I have to say. It was incredible how it was so bright.
I've been extremely emotionally down, Sherri.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of people. I mean, it hit people in a way. What I saw through my clients, through talking with other people, different things, is exactly what you're talking. It hit people like it just dropped them again into the gutter. Like I thought I was going back into the hole. And
yeah,
it was like, holy crap, like what is going on, And it even, which this is way too much information, but I like to do that is, our emotional cycles as females, when you have your period and you do different things, like especially as we get older, a lot of times there's, you have a tendency to be a little dramatic. Well, I have a tendency to be dramatic my whole life anyway. Yeah. But this moon really emphasized that for me.
Interesting.
And my kids, which maybe that's just, like the energy that's going on in my dynamic. But I have 2 teenage daughters. And, yeah, nice. They help me be crazy. So, or I help them be crazy, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And, but I felt like, okay, but then I felt like something was broken. Like something was released. Something was transferred, or I don't know the word to describe it, because it wasn't like jumping from one to the other. It was like a push-pull drag. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it wasn't so positive.
Right. It was like, not one of those experiences to where you're like people think that when you're kind of moving in a different direction, like it's like, la, la, la. And really it was more like, holy, you've got to be kidding me, for me. And but what's happened now is it has shifted, and I've moved into a different direction. And I can see now where things are opening up. And I, being a witch, of course, I also did using the moon and casting spells and putting protection around the earth, and doing things that I feel are contributing to the planet it was intensified, even if it's just in my mind, by, the idea of we haven't had a supermoon like that in 150 years.
Yeah.
Holy schmoly. Like, I would love to look back and see, and I didn't do this before the show, but I should have, like, what was going on during 150 years ago. I'm just be curious to see if they had, like, some huge expansion within that next year. You know what I mean? Like so whatever 150 years ago, whatever year that was, if there was some huge revelation or technology revelation, something that happened that was significant.
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
I mean, just because people are saying, that this year there's a list of things that are, I mean, you still have Christian groups talking about the end of time.
Yeah.
And Catholicism. And there is, I mean, I've had a couple of different ministers and different things, and the things that they read and the things that they're talking about, it's either matching what's happening, you know what I'm saying? It's either a prophecy of what's happening, or it's being made to happen to look like a prophecy.
That could be, yeah.
Do you see? I mean, we don't know. That's the thing about the internet and about the expansion and the awakenings. You start to realize that there's so many aspects of the things that we just took for granted as true because it was handed down.
Yes.
And maybe none of it's true.
Mm.
Really, it's amazing to me. So it's coming up on the hour, and we're going to take a break. Are you interested in coming back and hanging out with me, Barbara?
Sure, that'd be lovely. I would like to talk to you more.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm having a good time. Okay, yeah. So we're going to just it'll probably be, Stephen, play a couple songs for me, would you please?
Certainly will.
Okay, that would be great. We'll be right back, y'all. Welcome back, everyone. This is Elemental Evolution this week on People's Internet Radio, and we are, what do you call it when we are, we're volunteer?
Listeners reported.
Thank you.
Listeners
God,
reported.
I'm sorry, you guys. My brain is on overload with all this work I'm doing. So
hit the donate button.
Hit that donate button and help us to continue bringing news that you're not going to hear on the regular or the standard media, and we can all try and figure out different ways.
You sound like one of the big boys' PSAs now.
Oh. Then I had to cackle, ruin it. Maybe say fuck about 5 more times, and then we're all good. Sorry, Barbara's not here now, so it's all good. And it's late. It's like midnight there, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So now it's like, now I can just be myself and talk about all the things that I was kind of holding back with, because, not holding back probably isn't the right word, but, there is a lot to waking up. And that's what we call it. That's the title that we give it, is people are waking up to what's actually going on in our society, what's actually happening all over, the planet. I mean, it's all in different aspects and different directions. And a lot of it is, I don't even think we realize the effects that are happening in other countries that we don't really have access to.
No, I think they know that it triggers the fear in us. When is it going to come? When's the collapse coming? When are they coming for our guns? When are they going to, what are they going to do? When? When's this going to happen? When's that going to happen? When's this other thing going to happen? I think they know that it triggers a fear, and that's all good for them too. Triggering our fear.
I mean, that's it. Really, it all comes down to who benefits. When I was a young little girl, and my dad was an investigator, and I would ask questions or whatever, his answer was always follow the money. And I know that sounds stupid, but it's true.
Well,
and
that's the key to everything.
It is, and he drilled that into me from a very young age, which probably wasn't healthy. But it's something where if we take a look at every single dynamic that is happening on this planet, what does it all come down to? It comes down to money. Well, okay, so everybody's like, well, we're in survival, we need money, we have this, they're keeping it from, we go into all these different dynamics. All right, fine. Who's in charge of the money? That's why I'm like, who is actually the boss? Like, let's cut out all the middle bullshit people that don't even, they got their heads so far up their ass, they can't see, they don't even know what's going on.
The Vatican.
They're just following rules. And, you're going to pay me $100,000 to, kill half the planet? Okay. They don't give a shit because they're okay, right? That's what it comes down to. But when you get down to it, it's just like when you're dealing with Comcast, which I know a lot of people probably don't know who that is, but that's like your internet provider or your cable provider, your telephone, your public service, any of these companies that have you bent over because there's no place else for you to get that service and you have to have it. There's not a level of you can sit there and you can talk to the person who answers the phone. They're making minimum wage, maybe a couple dollars more. They could give a shit hi-who what is going on with you, what your personal problems are. They don't care at all. Like, they just want to get through the calls.
Actually, they're from India now, so they're making about a fifth of minimum wage.
Oh, good God! Like, don't even get me started, okay? That pisses. You call one of these places and you get somebody who you can't understand, or that doesn't speak English, or doesn't speak your language. Like, that's such bullshit. Like,
yeah.
No, that's
Hello.
not acceptable.
Hello, my name is Jack.
Yeah, Jack. How about you get your boss on the line? That's my new line. How about you get your boss on the line, and we'll just keep going up, because I'll bet the top guy isn't from fucking India. You know what I'm saying? I bet you he's sitting fat cat in California.
Right.
And that's, I'm thinking, no, this is a bunch of BS. And so that's where I'm looking at it now. It's like, okay, so we're bitching about all these things and all this stuff. Well, so now Barbara's messaging me.
Yeah, she's messaging me too.
Okay, well, tell her that we'll bring her in a few minutes. I'll go on.
I've already started bringing her in.
Oh, okay. Well, then I gotta stop ranting. Okay. Anyway.
Oh, we can continue. Go ahead
Okay.
until she gets back in.
Oh, the money. So basically, it's like I said, it's like going up to the boss. So you take a look at every single industry that is producing and making the things or doing the things that are contributing to the downfall of our society, basically. I mean, I don't know where else to go with that. I hate to seem so dramatic, but, I kind of am. So I'm having a hard time connecting with Barbara, so will you message her and let her know what she needs to do to have you call her in? I think she's now green. So
I just tried calling her and it just rang and rang and rang.
Well, she may not have seen it because she was on yellow, but now she's green.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the other part of that is, so it's like, okay, so here's what I decided to do, and I'm not sure how far I'm going to take this or how dramatic I'm going to be about it, but I have decided that how I'm going to stop complaining and do something about all the stuff I'm talking about is I'm going to print out the ad for cloud seeding, right? There's a whole ad, so if you go to these certain web pages, they advertise about how you can invest in the weather, how they change the weather, the chemicals. That's where you get the information about the scientific studies that have really not been done on the plant life, on the animal life, on human life, on and on and on and on. They have to post all that stuff. Nobody knows about it. Nobody goes to these sites. So I decided to make little postcards. In Vistaprint, it's like $10 to get 500 postcards. I thought about just, getting postcards made and handing them out, not in my neighborhood, but in other in wealthier neighborhoods where people are, if nothing else, they'll be pissed because they weren't let in on it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry. Were you paying? I know you were doing something else, so if you weren't paying
attention.
Well,
I was trying to message her.
I think she's in, right?
No.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Oh, good. Dun, 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 dun. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I was going on a rant.
Okay, no problem. Sorry I missed you.
No, you're good. This is perfect timing. I was done with my rant now.
Okay, good.
Where I'd like to go and what I'd like to talk about is, you had mentioned that you follow Jack. I will mess up the name. Jack, somebody, totally screwed up. Sorry. An Andromedan, is that right?
An Andromedan contactee, Alex Collier.
Thank you. Okay. I don't know why I wanted to call him Jack. Okay.
Because I mentioned the name Jack a few minutes ago.
Oh, yes. My brain. I'm sorry. I'm scattered. So, can you go into that a little bit for me?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how I got into following him, because apparently he's not so fashionable as some of the other people that are contactees, that have, millions of viewers and do talks all over the place.
Better. To be honest, okay, so one of the things that I said a couple of years ago, because like I told you in the beginning, is I was born with vision and sometimes weird messages and all kinds of crazy stuff happens to me.
Yeah.
And one of the strongest messages I've ever had in my life was last year, and it said, "All who are followed shall fall."
Interesting.
And over and over, and it was a big deal. Like Stephen knows, I was almost driven crazy by it. So, I mean, not that that's a long trip by any stretch, but that was a pretty intense message. And we are seeing that now, right? There's all these things that are happening. So by you saying that, I just went on a big tangent again, because It's probably good that you are getting your communications from somebody who doesn't have a bunch of people. You know what I'm saying? That was my point. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. He was the person that said that we should stop sharing information and start sharing insight and spiritual awakening, and mentioned that many of us that follow Alex are really into information and sharing information, which is what I have done for the last few years with geoengineering and various other issues. Primarily on Facebook and, leafleting and all this kind of thing. So when you decide, okay, well, now I'm going to switch gears, how am I going to do that? Waking people up or getting people to want to know what's actually happening, that's a good question. So that was, anyway, Alex Collier. He's a little bit older guy, and he says that he's been on an Andromedan ship and it has the capacity to change sizes, which I actually experienced myself visually. I've never actually been on a ship, but I've seen something, and so that you can be on a very small ship, but it actually is completely self-supporting, so they grow their own food in a small space. But the dimension, according to what he said and what I understand, is that time and space are not limited in other dimensions. It's only us who are limited in time and space because we're in 3D.
Correct. I mean, that makes sense. If you understand quantum physics and you understand the way that we are structured in the universe, I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that we could go with that. But that makes sense. Go ahead. I'm sorry again.
So I don't remember exactly how I got into following him. He's the one that I follow the most. There's some other people. They're all, interestingly, in the United States. And I have never really come out about my experiences because I felt that would put me in danger and also put the ETs in danger, because they can localize me. They can localize where the ETs are if they're hanging around me.
Anyway, I mean,
but
go ahead. I'm sorry.
The whoever it is that I have contact with have a superior technology and in spirituality, and I have been given instructions to come out, basically. And I started and it's very interesting that you contacted me today, because I've been starting to write about my experiences, because most of it happens quite randomly, and I don't really write it down in a logical manner,
Let's talk about some of it. If you don't care, we've got 45 minutes here.
Okay.
And this is the kind of stuff I'm into.
Okay.
Because this is real time. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the kind of stuff that I want to talk about. I'll be honest with you, like Wilcox and a lot of these people that are known for their alien talk, and they're doing all of these things, and they're all, like you said, they have thousands of followers. I personally have found a lot of what they're experiencing, I believe, is integrated from the government. So, go ahead.
I think Wilcox has somebody in his family that was in the military or something like that. He's like, he's high up there in terms of his line in his family. If you know somebody in his family was in the military or something like that, so he's getting he's in the system. Right. Same thing like Dr. Greer, his father was in the military. Right. So when you're in the system somehow in your lineage, then how can you be completely independent? I don't know, because they're obviously.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They're obviously. I think they're controlling the information that's coming out, as you mentioned, and I watched one of the recent movies that Dr. Greer made. And in the movie, I don't remember the name of it. If you mention it, I will remember it. He said something like that the ETs only became interested in us, or it wasn't him, or it was the narrator, that they only became interested in us in the last century because of the Second World War, because of the fact that we're a danger to the universe because of the nuclear bomb.
Right.
I
question that.
That's true. That's not true. They have been interested in us for a long time. They have been around for a long time, probably as long as we've been here. And maybe we actually come from them. Maybe we were placed here by them. Who knows?
And I believe that. I mean, I'll be honest, that makes more sense to me than anything else.
Yeah, it's manipulated somehow.
Well, you just don't get, I mean, you look at the human body and the way that it's laid out. You look at how you just look at human, not just human nature, but nature in general, and everything is just, I don't know how to describe it. It's too perfect in some ways, and then so extremely flawed in others that it has to be.
In divine creation, and if you believe that there is a divine essence to our reality, or whatever you want to call it, whatever this is, this was created by some kind of intelligence, or divine intelligence, or God, or whatever you want to call it. It's not an accident, and I don't think ETs, maybe their consciousness is closer to that. I don't know, because I know that there's different kinds of them. There's the ones that are closer to source, and then there's the other ones that are here that are trying to manipulate this reality to take us down into another
dimensional reality, to keep us enslaved, right?
To keep us in a low dimension so that we don't become more ascended.
Right. This is, God, I talk about this so much with the rape culture and the slave. And, that's basically what in my opinion, what has happened is we've become a slave race. And I don't think that was the intention when we were created. And I personally believe that we were somehow not, it's hard for me to grasp onto, we were created in a lab, by some alien on a ship. That's just hard for me to swallow, but it doesn't mean that it's not true. Mm-hmm. I also don't know if there could be some dynamic being that has reached a place of creating universes. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just know that something's gone on, like you're saying, for real. And when you're listening to this guy and you're having your own experiences, because you said you kind of went, you've gotten the message like to come out, but also it's about from within, right? So how do you do that? Like, where does that come from?
So it's like because I'm actually a teacher. I'm a trained teacher, in the system, basically, originally. And now I'm not actually working. I do some freelance work. And I wonder how to integrate this information somehow to help people, feel better, or help people see what's happening, or whatever.
I want to throw this at you. I want to throw this at you, and I don't know that this will resonate with you or not, but it's interesting because recently I found a woman by the name of Christy Sheldon. Mm-hmm. And I really like her because, she's basically, she's one of those speakers who just makes you feel good. I'm not going to say that she's got it all together or that she knows everything, but one of the things that she really brought to the attention was about frequency. And I had mentioned this earlier and then I got sidetracked, but it was basically from within. If you can get your vibration into the 700s, you affect 7,000 people within your resonance. Mm-hmm. So, and it becomes and people are like, well, what does that mean? Your vibrational level, and that's the peace, love, joy, right? Those are the highest vibrational, like those are the only words I can come up with. But that's when we can keep ourselves in those places of joy and project from there. That's when we're affecting from within. Like we're affecting when we walk into a room. We're affecting when we, the environment around us is being affected, and we've been taught that that's not true. Right. We've been taught. I don't know if we've been taught that it's not true, but we haven't been taught we haven't even taught about it at all.
Right. That's right. Well, most people think that it's absolutely nuts anyway. They think that they don't believe that it's possible to affect things with frequency. So you're already got you're already going to hit a roadblock there.
Oh yeah. Even talking to my own family. I am definitely the nut job. They're like, well, that's just the craziest thing I ever heard, Sherri. Okay. I'm thinking to myself, really? Like, I could go down a list of the things that I think are crazy that the common person believes in, But I guess, or common person, I shouldn't say that. That sounded really weird.
Regular person, most people. Yeah. Sounds better.
Yeah, or except that, they're still walking around asleep. This is the age of the zombie. We are in the apocalypse.
Yeah.
there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you look around and they've created all these distractions. So even people that are wanting to not be a zombie, they're not plugged into their phones, but they're constantly at work. They're constantly running, to do whatever it is that they need to do to survive. And, they've created a system where they are double dipping in every area of the human race, and it's not it's so infinite and it's so broad. It's like I don't even know where to grasp onto it, but it's like when we talk about public service, like we pay a tax of public service. That's part of our taxing. It's like why we're taxed. Mm-hmm. Yet every single public service that was initiated to start that tax is now been contracted out to private individual companies, and we are being that tax didn't go away. We're still being charged that tax, but yet now we are paying for the service to a separate company for each individual service. So we're being double dipped, triple, quadruple. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like in every area of how the dynamic is set up, it is set up to keep us in debt, to keep us suppressed, keep us in survival.
Yeah.
So here's my question for you. Mm-hmm. In the readings and in the stuff that you're hearing, so maybe not, okay, how do you get it out there? But what is a solution to, I guess, I don't want to say forcing people or manipulating people, but somehow shaking people enough to get them to see it for themselves, right? That's because that's the whole key. That's why, you can sit there and tell somebody over and over and over and over and over again. They'll either think you're nuts or they'll start to hate you. They'll disconnect, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think people are in such fear they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, and I want to have empathy on some levels, but then there's this other part of me that's like, well, guess what? That's too goddamn bad, because this has gotten to a point of where our planet is dying, the people are suffering, our children are growing up, where I'm reading some of these other college essays and different things, and I'm shocked at the grammar, the lack of grammar, these are college students, and they're writing papers like a freaking fifth grader.
Wow, that's too bad.
And they're passing. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all done. It's all about electronics. They don't know how to write. They're not given structural writing anymore. They're not taught cursive. They are taking away the ability to be able to connect to exactly the things that we're talking about. Learning about energy, learning about alchemy, learning about herbs, learning about natural health. My kids are considered so different in so many ways because they didn't know about so many of the common ideas. And so now, like the idea of medicines or the ideas of different things, even when I try to give it to them for whatever purpose, they have whatever going on with them, it's like a big no-no. But when you look around, I think I read a statistic recently, 65% of teenagers in the United States are on some type of antidepressant or some type of drug for behavioral or emotional issues.
Wow.
I mean, 65%? That's serious to me. And when you're talking about prescription drugs and you're looking at what they're putting into these drugs and how they're affecting people, like these kids are not just taking them as they're prescribed either. They're using them as party drugs and different things, and then having crazy side effects, and doing crazy stuff. And then everybody's like, oh, we don't know what's going on with this generation. I don't get it. Okay, so I have one more thing that I want to ask you about.
Sure.
So over the last several years, there's been a lot of weird things in the news, like there'll be a shooting and there'll be, a child abducted and found, and then there'll be, there's been different incidents where the perpetrator has been between the ages of 19 and now I want to range up to 27. It used to be 24, but this last incident in Colorado, the guy was 27. They have all been exposed to government, as you were saying. They've all been on several years of antidepressants or some type of mood-altering drug. They were all involved in some type of...
The one up near you, Sherri, the Batman shooting. He volunteered for a psychological study.
Experiment.
Study.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other kid that took the little girl and cut her up at the railroad track and all that stuff. He also was exposed. He also went through some type of experimental drugs for his ADHD, or, they've made up, to me, ADHD should be not given a prescription. You should have to spend more time with your kids. Like if they're
Used
not
to be
getting
when
enough attention.
used to be what they would call ADHD. They would say, go outside and play, kid.
Yeah.
To me, though, it's like it's a lack of attention. It's not that they're not paying enough attention. It's that they're not getting enough attention. So it's like, let's break this down for real. If they're not getting attention at home and then they come to school, any chance for attention that they get from the student or the teacher or the principal or anything else, they're going to just try and suck it up. And trying to sit down when there's no structure at home, there's nothing for them to do. They're sitting on video games, they're playing, watching TV. When they get to school, they don't want to sit in front of the teacher and listen. They want to bounce around and talk to kids and act like nut jobs. It's like we need to restructure how things are produced and taught so the kids want to learn. I mean, most little kids, you think about when you're at home with, your little kids, like they want you to teach them how to dust and how to vacuum and how to do everything. Where do we lose that in school? And I think that's a good question for you, Barbara, because you do have a background in teaching.
Mm-hmm. What happens to the kids? That's the question.
Yeah, why is it that we go from having these children that want to mimic everything and want to learn everything, as soon as they get into school, all of a sudden they're shutting down, they're not wanting to learn, they're not participating, they don't want to do their homework, on and on and on. Like, where is this breakdown, do you think, as a teacher?
Well, the question is very complex, and it's not only due to the role of education. When you look at the diet that we have nowadays, the nutrition is very poor. Even though the United States is a very wealthy country, the food is really bad. Most people eat, cereal in the morning, which has sugar in it, more than the daily recommended dose of sugar in one serving of cereal.
Oh, yeah, we're living off pure shit. That's no lie. I agree with you 100%.
So when first of all, you start your day wrong, and then they have, the cheese sticks, everything is processed, or the frozen peanut butter sandwiches for their snack. So they're at a nutritional level, they're not being nourished. And then most of the time, most parents let the screen be the babysitter because they're busy. Most parents both of them have to work, or they're single parents, so they don't have time. So they let the kid play with the iPad. Most kids are really good with iPads nowadays. They don't have a lot of manual skills, like to tie some kids don't learn how to tie their shoelace. They're not teaching cursive, like you said, but they're learning how to use a computer. So they have different skills. But those skills, like being on the internet and being on the computer, that creates a lower level of concentration because, what's our level of concentration? We can watch a video for 2 minutes. That's how long our level of concentration is. And that's not a long time. That's not a long level of, a long time. So then they get to school and there are too many kids in one class. Lots of kids have behavior problems or concentration problems or family problems, or they didn't have breakfast, or they're not interested, because one of the things that I saw kids do is that if they were not able to do something, they pretended they weren't interested. So, and the way that school is taught is primarily academic because there's not the space and time for activity, which kids need. Kids need activity. They need to do stuff, actually physically be actually doing something, not just really sitting at a computer screen. So
I don't know about you, but for me, when I was my favorite teacher and where the grade I learned the most in was exactly what you're saying. It was the teacher, my 4th grade teacher, who he made everything interactive. So every subject, and I'm sure that, he probably wasn't supposed to even then, but it was, so he would create things and do things to where even getting your multiplication tables down was a game.
Uh-huh.
It made such a difference. Like I said, I probably learned more in 4th grade than I did through the rest of my school years.
But you still remember that teacher. That's good.
And I still remember my times tables through 12. And I'm older. Anyway. So, there's certain things that got, like you're saying, if you're doing interaction and it's fun and it's something that it'll stick.
Yeah.
Now, what are they doing? Like, my kids don't enjoy and they don't like online stuff. They don't want to do the classes that way. And
No.
I have one daughter who's just amazing on the computer, and she does spend a lot of time on it playing, but they don't want, and they weren't exposed young. We didn't even have, like, they didn't know that there was any other channel besides PBS, which is like our local, channel or whatever, until they went to school. And, then they were like, they thought I was a horrible mother for a long time because they were exposed. And they didn't have milk, or, there was all these things that I thought I shielded them from.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't make that much difference, to tell you the truth.
No?
No. I mean, I have one, my oldest daughter she's vegan, and, so there's certain aspects of, I'm sure, how she was reared that made a difference. But overall, they want the same things that everybody else does.
Yeah, but they just want to fit in with their peers.
Exactly. And so, they have the iPhones and they have, different things, even though, I don't supply them, but it's like they manifest that stuff. They know. So there's things that you think that you're going in one way, but I worked part-time their whole life so that I could pay attention. I still had a lot of different issues. I have one daughter who, she has a very high IQ, and everybody was like, oh my God, she's so smart, so great, straight A's all the way through school. She's a junior now, and, she's always been on the honor roll. But it took years to try and develop the right side of the brain. So
interesting.
Oh, yeah. Well, because the left was so overcompensated. So she had a deep empathy for, like, animals and things that, like, in that aspect, but zero filter when it came to people, and not a lot of empathy. Not as far as being violent necessarily, but just if somebody, it was extreme. Like, somebody didn't have to ask, oh, how do I look in this dress, for her to say, oh, my God, why are you wearing that? Yeah. Anyway. So there's all kind, and they don't come with books. That's, I think, when they come out and they come into the planet, you should miraculously, there should be this book that appears by your bedside.
Like a user manual?
Yes. Because everyone is different. Like, you think you got something down, and then the next kid is a total trick. And as a teacher, I can't imagine how you would deal with so many different personalities and aspects of personalities, because you don't know. You don't always, sometimes but you don't always know what's going on at home. You don't always know what, like you said, maybe, they may be having 5-10 donuts in the morning, like, we don't know what's going on all the time. But yet, then you're the one who gets to deal with it all day long. That's going to be interesting. And so how do you even pull out of a system that, in my opinion, like, to me, our school system, it's just like all this marijuana in Denver. I'm sure that, because you know a lot about this, is, the marijuana in Denver, a big part of that, and the reason that it got passed was because the money, the profit the state was seeing was supposed to go into the school systems. Mm-hmm. Well, how it's turned out is they are making $40 million a month in the state of Colorado right now off the sale of marijuana.
You mean the private companies?
The government.
Oh, the government, because it's state monopoly?
It's because, no, it's just that's the taxes that are charged. It is higher than luxury tax, right? And the selling of pot in the state of Colorado has created a profit margin, basically, which if you were a corporation, that's what it would be looked at. But now, because it's the state, it's a tax that profit, or that brought in $40 million a month for the year of 2017.
$40 million a month. That's a lot.
That's a lot of money. And then you look,
why they legalized it, huh?
Oh, that's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because then that gives the opening for the government, the federal government. They're going to boo-boo it. They're going to do all this stuff, and then they're going to come in and take it over. It's going to be something, maybe not. I could be exaggerating about that, but it seems like, to me, the way that the bill initially read was that a certain percentage of that money, like 25%, was supposed to go directly into the school, right? That was supposed to be books, that was supposed to be education, teachers, Well, no. Now it's been amended to the point of now when you read it, because I get these stupid updates, now when you read it, it says it's only going for like special construction. Or like let's say that you have a school where the heater goes out, or you know what I'm saying? It's only used for if something happens, basically. It's not used for the day-to-day. So then you start breaking that down, and what I could find, now I'm not saying that this is completely true, but from what I could find and other people and other reports that I read, they are actually, out of that 25%, they are only spending 6% on education.
Of that money.
Of $40 million a month. You're not talking $40 million a year. You're talking $40 million a month, and they can only do, and so even at 6%, it's still a decent amount of money.
Yes.
But the problem is again, when you break it down and you start finding out where the money's going, okay, so it's so for special construction and for playgrounds and this and that. Okay, good. The majority of the money, even at that low percentage, is going to administration. Are you not the teachers, not the books, not the desks, not the computers, not any of that, to the high up administration? I don't understand that. I don't understand. I get it. If you're up there and you're having to deal with a lot, then you should get paid. And I'm not opposing that. But you really need 10 of them doing it? I mean, what do you think of that?
Money going, the other money, do they say what they're doing with that tax money?
No. And see, this is where then, so they just, and I don't know how many people know about this, and so I've just been screaming about it everywhere, and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. They just lost another $1 trillion mother frickin' dollars. Are you kidding me? This
federal government?
Yes! They now have another $1 trillion on the board that there's no claim. They have no idea what happened to it. It's just lost. We're not hearing about it on the news. It was publicized. People were talking about it for about 2.5 seconds, and now we're on to, whose butt is, Trump kissing today. Ugh.
People don't believe that it's possible. That's the problem. There is a theory that money is going into the black budget, the secret space program.
I mean, that's what I believe is happening to it. I mean, not only the space program, but I think when you were talking about Antarctica, I think there's a whole lot more going on over there than we even have a clue about. Because now this will probably sound crazy to a bunch of people, but whatever. They had a huge thing about the giants there.
Yes.
And one of the things that Hitler supposedly, and then scientists on and on, is they had found one of these giants, and he had been frozen. And
in Antarctica?
Yes. And basically there was a whole list of things that showed that basically Antarctica in certain areas, maybe on the other side, I don't really understand it, is Atlantis.
Yeah, that's possible.
And it's and you start thinking about, well, okay, so there's a portal, there's this, there's that. I mean, you just put all the pieces together, and it seems so what are we really even living in? I mean, that's where I'm at. I mean, where does it take you? Because we've got about 12 minutes left.
You mean the money issue, or which particular question? I don't know.
Just kind of the whole thing that we've talked about today. We've jumped all over the place and talked about 10 different things that I think in a common, if you were to go to Starbucks and start up a conversation with a complete stranger, they might be hauling you off.
Yeah.
Be
careful who you reveal this information to.
Well, exactly. So how do you deal with that? Like I said, I kind of asked you before, how do you keep yourself maintained, but how are you also, I guess, because we've kind of talked about, not really knowing the direction that you're supposed to go, which I think will come to you, by the way. I think that you were only given a part of the message. And so the rest is coming.
Yeah.
So there's going to be another whole line of information that's coming to you within this month.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's a good news.
Yeah.
How do you manage? Well, the thing of how we met on Skype, we have this group on Skype called Gamily, which somebody had invented, playing on the word family. You know about that? That group that we met in?
I don't know where the name came from. That is so funny. And I did not know that. But now that you say that, it makes sense. But no, I had no idea.
Yeah, because sometimes you can't reveal this information to your own family.
Oh, so true.
Or you can't talk about it with friends. So the people that you become close to are the people that you can talk about this information with. And, I've been attacked, as you said, other people have mentioned, and also personally. And I think most of the time it's because people are afraid. So, online is quite a safe platform. But you can also be attacked through frequency, or one time, you can find a police car parked in front of your house one day. All kinds of weird things can happen, even if you're not actually going public with your friends or family.
Oh, believe me. I mean,
you've experienced that.
Oh, the police, the black helicopters, the being hacked into my personal accounts, having my bank account shut down, having my PayPal account shut down. I mean, I have been and was hit in every single direction that I could possibly be. My kids, my health, every direction that could possibly went, they hit me all at once.
Yeah.
And it was the goal to stop me from doing exactly, not just this show, not just talking about it, but what we're talking about with the frequencies and changing what I call the matrix. Mm-hmm. Right? We think we're stuck in it, but really we're manifesting and creating it, and they are using that, and they've enslaved us in our own creation of reality through our cellular structure in our body.
Well, that's right. So the way to survive it is to have some kind of spiritual practice and to find a way to create some kind of protection around your energetic field.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. I wish we had another hour to talk about this part, because I just went through this whole thing. I mean, there's a lot too about being a witch that it may be bullshit for a lot of people, but in how I was reared, it'd be just like, well, anyway, I don't want to get into all that, but I was told at one point that I was, a curse was put on me. Mm-hmm. So during this last moon, I did a spell of protection, and I did all these things, and I have the 2 daughters, so it's the power of 3. And anyway, there was this whole dynamic that went on, and whether it's in my mind or it was true or whatever, that is when things broke. And that was when I felt unbinded. Mm-hmm. And there has been so many things that have fallen into place in just a short amount of time, like just within, a couple of days, things that were completely spun out of control still from 2017 have now like just almost like a Lego, just like fought like boop, 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 boop. It's amazing. It's crazy. But I think that too, so like when you talk about being attacked for yourself, I mean, because here's the thing, and this is where so David Wilcox one time did a thing, well, not everybody's attacked, that's your own shit, it's only special people who are being hit. Yeah, my ass, because they have the technology. When you're talking about these frequencies, I had this guy on one time, and he was talking about what they were doing is they were doing like basically experiments. And so, yes, originally it was like they were hitting individuals, right? With frequencies, different things, and manipulating their mind, doing all kinds of crazy shit that we can't even imagine.
Right.
Then they started hitting blocks, right? So you'd have 2 blocks that were affected by this frequency, and then the rest of the around them would not be affected. So in these 2 blocks, you would have increased domestic violence, you would have increased suicide, and like within a certain amount of time, you would see a massive increase in whatever frequency. So if they were throwing out depression, if they were throwing out anger, if they were throwing out whatever frequency that they were channeling, that's what was affecting those groups. Well, this guy, he was a part of this. Like, he was watching this. He was part of this experiment. He was supposed to be monitoring and all these other things, supposedly. Again, I mean, I wasn't there.
Right.
But to me, it makes sense, because when you look, I mean, how else would you control, like, these areas of poverty where people are already in survival and they already have all this crap going on in them? It'd be really easy to hit that and create a massive amount of violence, and because they already have it in them. They're already angry because of how society has been set up. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I have felt different ways, and it's like, I swear sometimes it's just not my feelings. I'm not a depressed person, but there's times where all of a sudden I'm like, oh, woe-is me, the whole planet sucks, I don't want to be here. What the hell is that? So anyway, so how has it affected you in that way, and how are you not affected by it? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how are you dealing with that piece of it? Because once you know, you don't get to unknow it.
Well, in terms of being attacked or something like that, how do I deal with that, do you mean?
Yeah, how have you either stopped it, or I know you said that, kind of developing a religious or a spiritual not really, but
Spiritual
spiritual.
practice.
Yeah, that has really helped. But are there other ideas that you have for people that are going through this that are maybe even newer than us that, because that's kind of, I want to, at the very end of the show, I want to give some resolution like, okay, well, this worked for me.
Okay, good. All right. So in terms of being attacked, I had stuff happen to me. I was living in a house which was haunted, and most of the other people couldn't perceive it. But because apparently, if you're the fat person, if you can perceive it, then they spirits or energies or entities will manifest to you because they know that you can perceive them for some reason.
Absolutely.
And so, I had some things, my path in this particular place in England that was changed partly because of of my forthrightness, which could also be a negative quality of saying too much, or whatever. People say I say too much sometimes. So in losing opportunities or friends or not fitting in the community because I don't shut up. So basically I had to change communities, or I learned not to say what I had to say all the time, which is,
Right.
for self-protection. But in terms of the physical protection, or one of the things that I do on a daily basis, it's an anthroposophical meditation, which is not going to appeal to everybody, but in sort of more mainstream terms, you have to strengthen what they call in German, your I, which is your own personal essence. Because as you go from one lifetime to another, there's one part of you which is the same each time, right? And that's your essence. So you've got all these other things, your personality, your physical body, and all these other things, which are just, your 3D you. And then there's the other you, which is your essence. And that part of you has to completely integrate or manifest itself here. One of my issues was that I didn't really want to be here. I
know that one.
I've been practicing to be here. So that means I'm strengthening my muscles. Like I'm not, there's a spiritual exercise, and then there's the physical exercise. People think they have to go to the gym to be fit, and that's true. But we also have to have the spiritual strength. And that's what I do, is I just do like a short mantra every day and a visualization every day where I'm protected. And because I'm extremely sensitive and I have a lot of sensitivities, like that make it difficult to live in the city, like multiple chemical sensitivity and electrosensitivity. So, you're bombarded at all levels at all times when you live in the city.
Yes.
So it's pretty not an easy place for me. So that's what I've been practicing. So this has been my exercise that I have been given recently, is to practice strengthening my own energetic field, because you have as you know, we have an energetic field, right? So we think that our energetic field is just the one that's our aura that's around our body. That's not true. We can expand our field to make it bigger or smaller. And since we're normally in a crowded place or we're in a busy place and we're running around worrying about, going to work or whatever, so we're normally compacted. So we're normally brought our field in. So bring our field in close to our physical body. So what I've been practicing my own spiritual expansion, which is how to strengthen my spiritual muscles, which is an exercise that was given to me by a spiritual teacher for my own particular personal issues. But I think it does actually help for people that are feeling like they're under attack, because we are under attack at all levels, with the chemtrails and the Wi-Fi and the frequencies that use to change the weather. All those things and the genetically modified food and the Morgellons fibers, and they're spraying flu viruses or whatever they're doing. We are under attack at all levels.
Sorry to interrupt, Sherri, but we do need to go.
Yeah, no, we've got to wrap it up here. And I agree with you 100%. And I think it's interesting because it's as a witch, I guess, I was reared to start dissolving clouds, which is actually expanding your consciousness at starting at like 6.
Oh, interesting.
And that's one of the teachings. And so teaching your children to manipulate the weather, manipulate clouds, connect with the plants, and all these different things, those are the teachings that are now left out of our society, which is exactly what you're saying. It's part of changing the frequency, changing the matrix that we live in, because we are in creation. We are creators. And I had a blast with you, and I am so glad that you were available, and I appreciate you coming on so much. I hope we stay connected, and I would love to do another show with you.
That would be so good.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope we can talk again and talk about, there's so many things to talk about.
There's so much. Now, I want really quick, because we have about 1 minute left, I want you to give out your website so that people can connect with you and kind of hear more if they want to or talk to